Hello everyone, Dom here with a quick tip and tutorial video. I wanted to go over a hot topic, and that one that a lot of people end up struggling with is heat management within their asteroid. So I wanted to provide my take on how to handle that, at least in the early game, going into the mid game. And it's really about finding the different areas as you are grinding through each of the areas that are creating heat and managing them in turn. So on a new asteroid, this is what you see right away. And if you pause for a second and you start to look around, you'll find abyssalite and other biomes kind of behind granite. So to start, you look at temperature, and you'll notice there's nothing really in between the starting biome, which is the green temperate climate, versus the super hot climate here. And the way you manage that, at least in the first few, I want to say 10 to 50 cycles, you want to create some insulated tiles in between each of those. And you go from each section of abyssalite to another section of abyssalite. And that's just due to the fact that it's a great heat barrier between each biome. So again, this is just how I do it. I will continue to do that all the way around the other areas that are toasty versus nice and temperate. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue this right along the edges of the different biomes. That way a lot of this heat will stay on the other side of the insulated tile. Up here we're going to do the same thing. We're going to bring it right up to the top. And that's just kind of how I like to handle early game heat. I just want to say heat transfer, but it's more like you're managing it. You have to intervene, otherwise this heat will get into the base. Now, you'll see that it's going to be different on every start because of the random generators, but in the most cases this will help you get into the mid game. Now, the next section that I wanted to show is how heat actually transfers between materials. So I have a set of regular tiles just made out of sandstone, and I have a set of insulated tiles made out of sandstone as well. This is in a hot biome. In the first set of cubes we have a vacuum, the second is cold oxygen, the third is hot oxygen, the fourth is cold water, the fifth is warm water, and the sixth is copper ore in its natural state in a tile it's pretty warm. It's 96 degrees Celsius. So what we are going to do here is we are going to let the heat do what it does, and we are just going to observe in each case what happens to the heat in each tile. Alright, so let's do that. Unpausing. Okay. We leave it for a few seconds, a few more seconds, and right about now we will stop. Okay, so for the vacuum, this is really, really important. In a vacuum, there is no heat transferring from one tile to the next in between a vacuum. That's because there's no material, no gas, no liquid, no anything that the heat can latch onto to transfer from one material, gas, or liquid to another. So utilizing a vacuum is a good way to get rid of heat in the base if you're struggling to do so. Okay, and that's just something that took me a really long time to figure out and learn. Now let's move on to the cold oxygen. You can see in the insulated tile, everything stayed relatively cold. It's slowly transferring into the insulated tiles simply because it has low thermal conductivity in the insulated tiles, so it only slows the heat passing through. It doesn't completely stop it. So then we move on to the hot oxygen, which it completely dissipated in the region around it, right? So it used the tiles and it dispersed the heat really close nearby, and both of these kind of neutralized each other out, because this was cold at negative 91 degrees, and then this was hot at 36.9 degrees in this one. So they kind of canceled each other out, and that's kind of what you'll see across the base. When you have heat being exchanged, that's a normal thing to happen. Now with liquids, again, the water is cold in this one, and then it's really hot in this one. You can see that the cold water is slowly pushing in an up, down, left, right fashion on all of these tiles. So each one of them is slowly getting colder, and then once those get colder, the tiles above and to the right, or above and to the left, and so on, are getting colder based upon these four. So this is slowly cooling the area, kind of anticipated, but I needed to show it in real time. Another one, we'll move over to the hot liquid, the hot water. I made it so it wasn't too hot to where it would evaporate, and you can see that the heat is transferring above it, to the side, and to the bottom, and to the right. Same thing with the copper, except in more extreme. I think the copper was a little bit warmer. Maybe it wasn't, but it's an actual tile, so it might transfer a lot easier. But this just goes to show, insulated tiles is a really good way to help prevent heat transfers within the base from the outside biomes nearby. Okay, and again, this was in a this was in a hot biome that I created this contraption in. Now we're going to move up past the base, and let's look at the other one that I did. I created the same setup, but I did it in a cold biome. And as you can see, everything transferred in a similar fashion, especially when it was put in a condensed insulated tile, right? So the heat pretty much stayed the same. It didn't really change. The cold stayed the same, and it maybe got a little cooler on the inside, and that's because of the insulated tiles being next to cold tiles. But generally the heat in the insulated tiles stayed the same. And then up here you can see the copper ore still provided the most amount of heat transfer, going from the center tile to the outer tiles, and then moving on to the ones in the corner, slowly but surely. So that's kind of one of the main things I wanted to show, because it does not get very covered very often. And looking at the vacuum again, since there's nothing in here, no heat exchange took place, because there's nothing for heat to grab onto. The last setup is the same thing, but we're all in a vacuum. They're outside at the top of the base, and I showed this because when you are in a vacuum, the heat will stay inside of whatever is in the vacuum, right? So this whole area around these bricks are a vacuum, so all of the heat stays within the tiles and within these 9 squares on all of them, including the copper. The copper didn't transfer out further, it just all stays within the regular tile set. That's it, everybody. That's what I wanted to show you. And this is going to be part 1 for the heat management tutorials, and I have it in this format because there is way too much to cover in a single video. Again, please let me know if you have any comments or questions in the comments below. With that, we'll see you in the future videos, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.